today presenting fundamentals of research methods and methodology. And I'd like to warn everyone that textbooks do not use the same vocabulary. So we have to be careful because sometimes one author himself, like Creswell, would call something by one vocabulary and then would call it by another vocabulary. Even the same author is not using the same vocabulary consistently. And this is the agenda for us this evening. We have number one, we are comparing humanities and the sciences. Number two, what's the difference between methods and methodology? Third, research design. Fourth, sampling techniques. Fifth, data collection. Six, validity and reliability. Seven, data analysis and interpretation. And lastly, research ethics. We shall go over them one by one. Now, for the first part, we will make a distinction between humanities and the sciences. Why do we need to make a distinction? In the humanities, you have oftentimes we read Aristotle, Plato, and all of the thinkers, Cicero, and then also in other parts of the world, we have all the different fields in the humanities, from ancient studies to art history, to literature, to cultural studies, to divinity, ethics, and gender studies, history, and so on and so forth, including theology. So all of these fields belong to humanities. I'll tell you why it's important for us to know this. In the humanities, they have one way of writing. You have, when you read Confucius, or when you read Lao Tzu, you read Simone de Beauvoir, Jean-Paul Sartre, or Antonio Gramsci, or Newton, or Lucien, or Samir Amin, or Pablo Neruda, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Samir Amin. They have another way of writing. In fact, people from all over the world in the humanities and philosophy, you have African American and African scholars, Frantz Fanon, Senghor, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, and then you have French philosopher, Ziegler, Louis Althusser, Badiou, Bourdieu, Michel Foucault, Lyotard, and then you have Marx, Rosa Luxemburg, and many feminist writers too. Vandana Shiva of India, Eleanor Roosevelt. Their way of writing is very simple. You have an introduction. Very importantly, you have a thesis statement. Sometimes they call it central thesis. Sometimes they call it thesis. Sometimes they call it thesis statement. Then you have the body. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chapters. And then you have conclusion. Oftentimes the structure is argument, counter-argument, and a new knowledge that you develop at the end. So that is the structure when you write papers in the humanities and philosophy. So we have, on the one hand, humanities and philosophy papers, and then on the other hand, you have natural sciences and social sciences paper. So when you look at humanities, you're looking at the human experience. You're looking at the lived experience, the emotions, our interaction with one another. With the natural and social sciences, we are more rational and thinking about what people feel or do. So there are two different ways of looking at things, the same phenomenon. So one side focuses on pathos, the feeling, the passion. That's humanities and philosophy. The other side looks at logos or logic or reason. That's the social sciences and natural sciences. So they are related. In fact, even in philosophy, they recognize we have pathos and logos. and ethos at the same time, the three of them. But the way we write will vary depending on the field that we are in. Okay, now going to social sciences and natural sciences. So we see a distinction. In the natural sciences, you have like in physics, everything is measurable. In the social sciences, it's measurable, but we don't just look at abstract numbers and things. We're looking at human existence. For instance, poverty, wealth, power. So we're looking at the social pyramid. You have a few rich, many poor. So we are measuring them in the social sciences. Some of the social science fields include, among others, anthropology, archaeology, economics, education, geography, linguistics, political science, international relations, psychology, and sociology. So these are the social sciences. And natural sciences, the basics are biology, chemistry, and physics. And all others are variants of biology, chemistry, and physics. Now, the type of paper you write in the humanities and philosophy is called conceptual paper. And the paper you write for the social sciences and natural sciences are called research papers. In many journals, in fact, you have three sections. Section one is conceptual article. Remember the format of how to write it? It's introduction, body. You could have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters a section, or if you want, and then conclusion. That's the conceptual paper when you write for submission to journal article. But in the science section, usually it's the second part of an academic journal. It's called research paper. And the way by which you write it is very different. The third part of most journals are book reviews. And that's another way of writing as well. Okay. Oftentimes, in the humanities and philosophy, they use the Chicago style. This is as a rule of thumb. In the social sciences, especially education or psychology, they use APA. There are many other systems. You have Turabian, you have ALA, MLA, Harvard, but these are the major ones. Okay, so in the social sciences, you use APA. Now, we go to the distinction between methods and methodology. So remember now, there are two major ways of writing. That's a lecture for another session, which I did last week. Okay, the structure of the paper. But for the humanities, the structure is very simple: introduction, body, and conclusion. So methods and methodology are different, but they are related. Okay, they go hand in hand. So let's look at the distinction between the two. Methodology is the big picture. It's the umbrella which guides a paper. Research methods are specific ways by which we collect and analyze data. So one is the big picture. Think of it as an eagle flying. And then research method, think of it as little ants or bees doing things. If you need to build an ant hill, you have the workers do things. If the bees need honey, they have to go around, get pollen, and then suck the pollen and to get the extracts, and they get honey and go back to their hives. But the methodology, it's like an eagle looking at the whole forest. So the forest and the tree, okay, that's the analogy. So methodology, what is your philosophy by which your paper is guided? And do you have a theory? If so, what is the theory that you're using? Philosophy is a big word. It includes ontology, epistemology, logic, but we'll not go deep into it. Ontology, you have materialist, then you do inductive, empirical, and that's more social science. If you are doing a social science paper, but you can also be deductive and start with an idea, abstraction. Philosophy, history, and humanities paper oftentimes start with a thesis statement. That's deductive way of writing. So whatever your framework of analysis will guide the way you write your paper. Method will be the practical techniques that you do. And we shall look into that within 1 hour, what they are. So for methodology, you have three big umbrella. You're using qualitative methodology or quantitative methodology or mixed methodology. For the methods, so what are your specific questions? Okay, so methodology can be something that many people use. Maybe 33% of the people use qualitative, 33% of the people use quantitative, and 33.33% of the people use mixed method. But your specific paper has your own specific research questions, not applicable to other people. You see, think of it again as the bees or as the ants who are working specifically on your own beehive or on your own ant hill. Okay. And then so you would make your, for example, survey questionnaire. It's only applicable to your research. It's not for everyone. Okay, so methods is very pointed, only for yourself. It's only for your own use. And then the stages during which you work on methods or methodology will also depend on one, during the planning stage, you are in the methodology part. Like, what should I do? Should I write a humanities paper or should I write an empirical paper, which is inductive? Or should I start with a hypothesis? Therefore, it's hypothetical deductive. So that's still planning. What will I do? How should I plan to write my paper? The methods part is when you are already actually collecting data. Okay, so again, those are two different stages. So methodology is more abstract. My ontology is materialist. My epistemology is empirical. And then when you do methods, then what are you really concretely doing? For instance, I will be interviewing. So that's very specific. Unlike the ontology and epistemology, those are big words. Now, methodology would include the research design. So you have to come up with the bigger picture. So what sampling techniques will you use? Okay, and then the data analysis procedure. We will go into these one by one. The methods, then we have to pick specific research design, specific sampling technique, specific data analysis procedure. There are many from which we choose one or two. Okay, so now we will look at the bigger picture now and see. This is a sample of my actual paper. This is my methodology for a paper I wrote, which was published. So I explained I'm doing an empirical research and I have this interactionist research design and I do triangulation and my data analysis involves data coding, thematic analysis, and data interpretation would include the iterative production of new knowledge. So that is a sample of an actual methodology I wrote with the methods. The bottom part is methods. Methodology is the big picture. Okay, so now let's go to research design. Okay, so all of them are related. You have qualitative research methodology, you have qualitative research design. So we are going deeper and deeper. The big picture, the methodology, and then we're going to design. So they are not separate, they're all interrelated. Think of them as scaffolding. Like if you are wearing the Olympics now, you have the Eiffel Tower. Okay, maybe perhaps there are four corners. You need to have the braces, the brackets, the scaffolds to keep the Eiffel Tower together. So you have four pillars, but then you need to have something that combine them together. So you have research methodology, research design, they're all related. You are building it up. Okay, so technically we say there are three types, separate: quali, quanti, and mixed methods. Okay, but in fact, mixed method is nothing new. It's just you are mixing literally elements of qualitative and elements of quantitative. So it's not really three separate, it's really two that you mix and it appears it's a third one, but it's not. It's just putting two together. Okay, so this is the more fluid, dynamic picture of how we look at the mixed method, for example. Okay. The qualitative research design is used if you want to understand human experience. For example, you want to look at how is the experience of a domestic from, let's say, South Asia or Southeast Asia working in the Gulf state. So you want to understand the experiences, the daily lives of the domestic or of a construction worker from Pakistan, India, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangla, okay, who are working in Saudi Arabia. They are constructing a building. So you use qualitative. You talk with them, you eat with them, perhaps you stay in the labor camp with them and understand and join them for a month, work with them, so you will understand how life is. Sometimes you do job shadowing. That means you do as they do. It's like you are an employee yourself. So in qualitative design, you want to know the lived experiences of people. And these are some of the specific qualitative research design. Action research. You want to do something. At my university, for example, we had a tree planting, interfaith tree planting. Uh, we planted that during the COVID pandemic. Now the cherry tree had blossomed and it had borne fruit, but the two chestnut trees are still stunted. They're not growing well, but they're alive. So we had the Buddhist monk, Christian pastor, Christian minister. Uh, we have a Sikh leader, imam from the uh, mosque in Thailand, and we have Baha'i representatives. So people from different faith who joined, and a Hindu sannyasi, pujari, who joined the tree planting. So this was an action research. The purpose was to have a meaningful activity which will be related to sustainable development and food security. Now it has fruits, so anyone who picked the fruits, it's for free. It was meant to be for food security. So we don't say you're stealing the fruits. Uh, and then, in fact, we've already chestnut tree, old ones, like a few decades old. People are picking up and shaking the tree so that the chestnuts will fall. And actually, people do that on a daily basis now because it's harvest time. And we just let people harvest as they wish. That's action research. You're actually involved in doing something for change. Autoethnography is you want to document your life, let's say, as a student living in the maid's chamber, in the attic, in a French apartment in Paris. Okay, you are au pair. You work taking care of babies or nanny for little children, teaching them English and tutoring them while they're at home, but you want to also experience how it is like to be an au pair, yeah, who lives in the attic on the top floor of a apartment of a bourgeois Parisian. Okay, so you write about your life. Biography, oftentimes, it's about famous people. The CEO, the founder of uh, Metaverse, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, all of it. So there are a lot of biographies and books of famous people. Okay, Ambedkar, Gandhi, Nehru, and everyone else. So that's a type of qualitative research. Case study, that's very much used by Harvard Business Review. You just talk of one manager, one company, one product, and just explain it in depth. Okay, and there's another way of writing it. Ethnography oftentimes is you join, originally it's going to the village, learn about how people live, but now ethnography is also done in companies. A lot of people now are studying, let's say, Thai business culture or Tata business culture. So you will go to the company and job shadow and find out how people interact and behave in the company, or even in Silicon Valley, like in Bangalore in India. So how do the IT people behave compared to people in other industries in India? Grounded theory is something you produce at the end. It's both a process and a product. You do not use a theory. No theory guides your paper. It's inductive. Rather, you produce a theory at the end of your research. Historical research, we all know we dig into documents or interview people who have known certain events and then write them up. Okay? Interpretivism is looking at people's interaction with one another. Let's say there's a protest in Paris, the yellow vests, or the anti-immigrant protests in London right now, or the student protests that kicked out the Prime Minister of Bangladesh a couple of days ago. So you look at people's behavior and try to understand what triggered them to engage in protests that way. Or you can also look at why does the Olympic Committee check the Chinese Olympians like 21 times a day, including 5 a.m. and 1 a.m., whereas the American athletes are just tested maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. But the Chinese are tested 21 times a day. So you want to know why is this happening? So that's the type of research you do. Phenomenology is what they call you bracket reality, and you look at the essence of the lived experiences of people. So this is highly subjective. So it's not true that social science research are all objective. Many of these are subjective. Many of these. Okay. And symbolic interactionism is how people in general interact with one another. Okay. This is my actual uh, title of my paper, published in Brazil, a journal in Brazil, a participatory action research on the care of water and life on Earth, a case study of interreligious and intercultural engagements in the time of the pandemic in Thailand. This is what I was talking about with the tree planting. It became a journal article, and it has a Portuguese translation because it was published in Brazil. It's bilingual. Okay, so my abstract was also uh, appeared in both English and in Portuguese and the keywords. Now, so we look at the qualitative research design. There's a quantitative research design. Uh, in the qualitative, we're looking at human experiences. In the quantitative research design, we're measuring numbers. So the data are in numbers. Okay, there are many types of quantitative research. The most famous ones are descriptive, correlation, causality, experimental, and pre-test, post-test, as well as survey. So these are the more famous ones. A meta-analysis is you look at all of these studies, for example, about the vaccine. You look at what Pfizer did, what Johnson and Johnson did, and what Sinovac did, and put them, aggregate them all together. Okay, it's a study of studies, the quantitative study. And you can also do secondary data analysis, quantitative, like you want to look at the economic development or growth of India. So you check the records of the National Statistics Office of India, maybe in Delhi, the World Bank, excuse me, IMF and BRICS, if they're data. So you can do research based on secondary materials as well. This is a sample of my qualitative research. Again, this is published. A chapter in a book published in the US. I think it's chapter 2 or 3. Uh, so this is a case of grounded theory and case study. And then I have another journal article. This came out June of this year, a couple of months back, co-authored with 3 other faculty members at my university, 3 ties, different departments, economics and communication. So it was multidisciplinary. A case study of web-based communication for online teaching and learning of a Christian university in Buddhist Thailand. So this is mixed method research design. Okay, why did I not have an example of quantitative research design? Simple, because it would be a waste if I do quantitative. I'm already conducting the research. Why don't I even collect the qualitative research? Since I'm already doing the research. So it's shooting 2 birds with 1 stone. So I either do qualitative or mixed method. It's not worth it to conduct quantitative research only. Since you're already collecting data, you might as well collect alphanumeric data, both words and also numbers. Okay, so in qualitative research design, we're looking at behavior and experiences. Quantitative, we're looking at numbers. Oh, wrong spelling there. Mixed method, we are combining both. Okay, and qualitative research is subjective. We're looking at people's meaning making. Quantitative is objective. You do hypothesis testing if necessary. Okay, so these are some example of qualitative research design. Ethnography, you go out to the village, talk with the female leaders, religious or secular. That's ethnography. You want to know what they are doing, how people treat them, and how they treat the villagers. A phenomenology is looking for meaning of your life. More or less, that's the writings of Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. It's called existentialism in the French philosophy. It's related to phenomenology. This is more a German vocabulary, Edmund Husserl and Martin Heidegger. But they are related because Jean-Paul Sartre was influenced by Heidegger and Husserl. So one is the French school, the other is German school. Okay, grounded theory, we start with nothing, and then you collect data and you develop a new theory. So to do this, you do interview or observe what's going on for the qualitative. And for the quantitative, you either do tests like experiments or you do surveys. So you collect data. Oftentimes it's in Likert scale. Frequently, never, always, sometimes, seldom. Okay, scale from 1 to 5. The more the number of choices, the better the quality of your research. If you just say yes and no, that is low quality of research because it does not show nuance. The more acceptable now is 5. Like never, sometimes, frequently, always, often, and then always. So it's more nuanced to have 5-point in the Likert scale. Okay, so in qualitative research design, it's abstract and you interpret it. So it's very subjective. In quantitative research, it's very concrete and statistical. 2.5 is 2.5. There's nothing subjective about it. That's the result that came out. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Sampling techniques. In qualitative research, There are sampling techniques, and the vocabulary is different from quantitative sampling techniques. It's purposive. That means you choose, you really choose by design. It's not by accident. And then oftentimes there are very few, for which reason you cannot generalize your findings. For example, you have interviewed, let's say, 5 Olympians. Let's say one is from Belarus, one is from Venezuela, maybe another one is from India, and then another one is from Oman, and another one is from Lanka. So you cannot say all Lankans are like this, or since Oman has one bronze, that all people, all athletes from Oman are great. You cannot generalize. You can only talk about the persons you have interviewed. Okay, it's very limited, your findings, and there's nothing wrong with that because you produce very detailed, the vocabulary is thick description from Clifford Geertz. It's a very famous vocabulary from Clifford Geertz for people who are doing ethnographic research. Okay, so these are the types of sampling you do in qualitative research. Purposive or judgmental, by the word you understand, like I decide that you will be uh, somebody who will I will interview. It's it's by design. Snowball means I ask you, oh, do you know anyone else also who's like 28 years old? A woman who also goes to the university, also in our same city? Oh, yeah, I know. Then if the person says, I know 5, say, can you please refer me to them? That is snowball. That's called snowball research sampling. Convenience means, okay, I need 5 people. Okay, 5 people pass by. I hope they will accept to be my respondents. That's convenience. Quota is, for example, I need 2 men, 2 women, 2 transgender. So you already pre-selected, I need to have X number of people who will answer my survey questionnaire. Theoretical is you are fitting, trying to show right or wrong the theory. Like if people who are, let's say, over 100 kilograms, they must be overeating. And then you make criteria. Overeating means eating more than 3 meals a day and eating more than, I don't know, for example, 3,000 calories a day. So there's a theory you are going by. The theory says you should eat only 2,999 calories per day and only 3 meals a day total. So you're fitting, and then you will show, aha, somebody is overweight and the person does not fit the theory, which means because the person is not following the prescribed diet and frequency of meals, therefore the person is overweight. For example, that's theoretical. An extreme case is you want to interview the highest achiever in school, like somebody has super high IQ. Like, why is this person so good? So you want to study the extreme case. Or it could be, why is this person not doing well in school? There are many research doing exactly doing that on school children. And oftentimes the findings is because the child is hungry, they come from poor family, how can they think of studying when there's nothing in their stomach? And they are really dying of hunger, literally. Okay, so those are extreme cases, and they found out that many times it's hunger causing students not to perform well in school. And hunger is a function of poverty. So it's a social class issue as well. So many things come together. It's not only educational or academic, it's also economic, not just educational, but also economic. Okay, and social status. Okay, they go together. And maximum variation, you want to study, let's say, the highest achiever, the average person, and the lowest achiever. It could be school, it could be factory, it could be uh, uh, a religious institution. Why does this monk pray so much? Why is this monk always sick? And why are most of the monks all already awake by 4 a.m.? So you want to look at all the variations and study all of them. Homogeneous sampling, you want to say all of them have to be women, all of it have to come from the same village, all of them have to be Adivasi, all of them have to be below 20 years old. So you make that very clear. For criterion, you decide, I need 5 of this, 8 of that, 20 of that, because. Okay. The typical case would be what they say in English, Tom, Dick, and Harry. So what is a regular person like? So you go to the shopping mall and look for a typical person. Say, can I invite you for coffee? I'd like to interview you. Say, why? Because you look typical. We'd like to know what typical means. So that is your research. Okay. So, but in quantitative, you cannot do judgmental or snowball. It has to be random. Everyone should have an equal chance of being selected. And if the qualitative, it's very few. In quantitative, it's large data set. Sometimes it's called big data or metadata. Okay. And oftentimes they are generalizable because you have big number of participants. In fact, for national survey in the US, they only have 1,200 people representing, I don't know, 300 million population. You have 1,200 people who are selected by random, and their answers reflect the general sentiments of the American. That's what Gallup poll does. But in general, when you do quantitative research, you must have at least 33 samples. Okay, in general, that's the rule, or 33 years. That's the magic number. Okay, so quantitative, you have systematic, stratified, cluster, multi-stage. Okay, simple is everyone has an equal chance. Systematic, you say every 10th person will be selected. Stratified, you would say, would like somebody of this age, of that age, and of that age. Cluster, you would say people in this village, one group, in that village, another group. Multi-stages during the early stage of your research, middle stage, and at the end stage. Okay, and then the probability of generalizable of your answer is greater because they are random. Okay, now let's look at this is a paper I've published with 3 other professors in the June journal. We interviewed, we had a survey of students, faculty members all over Thailand. This is non-probability, like we had to get X number of people, and it's purposive, so it's pre-selected. So we cannot claim our answers are generalizable. It's convenience because we ask around. Do you know some students? Do you know some faculty members? Do they speak English? And then snowball, it's referral system. And quota, we need like 30 people minimum, for example. So these are the steps that we undertook to get that. And this is our sampling, how we did it. We had to show this in our journal article. This is our team members and how we were able to collect the total number of participants in our research. So the 2 team members contacted faculty and student, and then snowball. Some faculty and some students say, "Oh yeah, I know," 2 other persons, and the 2 other persons says, "Oh yeah, I know some other people." So then we were able to get more people. So this is from our actual paper. Now, data collection methods. And for qualitative data collection, it is open-ended, meaning you ask people and let them answer as long as they want. It's not a yes or no question. It's like, how do you feel? What was it like? When were you? And then they give you a long and in depth, like you go deep. So you have coffee with them and so on, and you get rich description. That's the advantage of qualitative research. It could be interview, it's one-on-one, it could be focus group, like 4 people at the same time. The reason you do that are many. One is they cross-check each other's answer. No, 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 I was also there. You don't remember correctly. This was what happened. So there's self-correction among them. And then it also saves time when you do focus group. But there are also disadvantages. If there's an alpha interviewee, the alpha person will say, no, you all have to listen to me. What I say is correct. And if there's only one alpha, then that will destroy the credibility of your research. So you have to pay attention to the dynamics among the people in the focus group. Observation, you should not judge people. You take record, you just observe and write down in your field notes what you see and documents whatever is available out there. Okay, so that's for, in general, the data collection method. For quantitative, they are measurable. It's not open-ended. It's how many children do they have in, let's say, in India for the year 2024? Oh, it's 2.4 per family. That's the national average. I don't know. It's an example. So it's measurable. Each family produces 2.4 children. Of course, 0.4 is not real, but that's number. That's the problem with number. Now you divide people into points. Okay, so you get numeric data instead of alphabetical data, and you can do survey or experiments. Okay, experiments is more on natural sciences, social sciences more on survey. Okay, let me skip. Okay, here we use in data collection, originally, this is an actual text from our journal article. We originally used Google Form, but since the university subscribes to Microsoft and all students have access to it, we can ask them to use the Microsoft. So we switch. So we use data collection through the Microsoft form. And then because we thought because the students are now high tech, they have computers, they have cell phone, they will answer the Microsoft form, but they don't. So our assumptions were wrong. So we recorded that we were our assumption, we were misguided by our wrong assumption, and we were late already in data collection. So we juggled our budget and we hired a student assistant to help collect data with a QR code to tell the students to fill out the form. It failed again, even if students and faculty members have a cell phone, smartphone. So we decided that the research assistant must print and bring hard copies. So no matter how high tech we are, we go back to the paper and pen way of doing the survey. That was the reality. Data analysis. In general, we use figures and tables. Most journals would require you to have at least one table or one figure, not copied from books or articles, but your original. And oftentimes, figures or tables summarizes parts or the whole paper. So they are very helpful for yourself and for the reader. Okay, so you have for the qualitative, it's words, it's stories, and unique, you cannot generalize. Okay, but for quantitative, there are numbers, and they could be descriptive, meaning you just say 2 people, 2 persons, four birds, 5 houses. Or inferential, you're doing hypothesis testing. In descriptive, you don't do hypothesis testing. You just show how many people. And some will be testable. And oftentimes, since you have many people that you're interviewing, they are generalizable. How do you do data analysis? Either manual or with the software. Okay, manually, you can use Excel. I've done tables and figures with Excel. You can do figures and tables with Google Form, with Microsoft Form, Maxda, and Vivo PowerPoint. And Zoom will also have automatic transcription if you're subscribed to that. I don't know what level of subscription you should have. They will do automatic transcription. And there are other software you can subscribe to, and they will automatically transcribe your text. Okay, these are the different types of data analysis, content analysis, thematic, narrative, grounded theory, phenomenological, discourse, ethnographic, and action research. For lack of time, I will not discuss them. But you can find my file in academia.edu under my name. I will post this online. So you have here, this was my paper published in the US. I made 3 items. One is NATO blames Russia, and I need to prove this was required by the editor, the anonymous peer reviewer. If your paper is submitted as a research journal article, you must have data analysis in the form of a table and prove that your data is from valid, relevant sources. So I have quotations. And also, the second one is Ukraine blames Russia about the war, and then Russia blames NATO. So I said there are competing narratives about the war in Ukraine. These are all direct quotations. Okay, so this oftentimes journals require you. Again, it could be qualitative or quantitative. This one, it's another journal article I wrote about AI, religion, and ethics. This was published last year in December. I said these are some of the religious AI bots that I have used. There is the general AI religious bot, there's Jesus bot, there's Ganesh bot, there's Gita bot, there's Hadith bot, there's Jewish prayer bot, there's Talk with Jesus, and I have made some custom-made chat bots, and I use them too. So, and I wrote about this using autoethnography as my research method. This is another data analysis sample. I co-authored a paper with a Palestinian American humor. We I categorized there are 3 types of humor, 4 types: incongruity theory of humor, relief theory of humor, play theory of humor, and superiority theory of humor, and from stimulus, function, and response. So from all the different theories, I categorize them into there are 4 types of theories. So that summarizes my literature review in a table. So if people are in a hurry, they want to know what was my literature review about. If they read this, it already summarizes the whole literature review. And this is another paper I wrote about the different type of feminism. This was published also in the US. Extreme right, I call it reactionary false feminism. And then extreme left, you have revolutionary Marxist feminism, and so on and so forth in between. Third world, post-colonial, centrist libertarian, conservative feminism, left-wing critical and social democratic feminism. So I categorized, again, that's my literature review in one figure. So data analysis could be in the form of a table and figure. This is my student's work. He used a software, NVivo, and he found out these are the keywords that appeared many times between NGO, non-governmental organizations, and government. And you have peace rhetoric for this, and another one for conflict rhetoric. So they're coded. I think red is government, blue is NGO or something like that. So this is not by hand, but by software. I did mine by hand. My student did it, a PhD student did it by using software. And there are many software you can use for quantitative data analysis. You can do manual again, Excel, Google Form, Microsoft Form. PowerPoint can do that. R is the latest software a lot of people are using R, and SAS, people in engineering and economics used to use that, and SPSS, people in social sciences use SPSS a lot. Okay. For quantitative, the two types of data. Descriptive, you just write the number, and inferential, you do hypothesis testing through statistical tests. Okay, this is a sample of my paper. This is descriptive quantitative data analysis. How many Buddhists? How many Christian? How many Muslim? How many atheists? Students, faculty, and type of learning. Okay, and then this is quantitative data analysis. You have, again, for the descriptive, it's just saying how many Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, atheists. But for the quantitative, inferential data analysis, I have independent variable, age and sex, dependent variable, communication pattern, and conflict management style. So to what extent does age affect communication pattern? To what extent does sex affect communication pattern, etc., etc.? There are four things going on at the same time. Two independent variable, age and sex, and dependent variable, there are also two, communication pattern and conflict management style. So that uses inferential statistics, testing the relationship between independent variable and dependent variable by a one-way MANOVA through the use of SPSS. Okay. MANOVA is when we are looking at many variables. Again, I have sex and age, and then conflict management style, and also communication pattern. So four, testing them, how are they related? So at the same time, we're checking all of these relationship going on at the same time. Okay, and there are many other types of quantitative data analysis, but the most common are descriptive and inferential. Okay, let me check. Okay, for data interpretation, this is now you make a story. So from your writing, so you code either manually or you use software. Like my student use NVivo, or you can use Maxda. Okay, I use my hand on a sheet of paper. And then you identify patterns, you look for themes, and you make a story. And this story is unique to your findings, and it's not generalizable. Okay, so you look at what's going on with this person. Is this person crazy? Is this person hiding with multiple identity crisis? Or is this person schizophrenic? Okay, so you will write a story about that. Okay, so when you do data interpretation, you are now writing a story. There will be biases, but make sure your claims are based on your findings. Interview, survey, observation. Don't make things up. Okay, sometimes you only have one sample and you overgeneralize. That's a major sin. Many people try to overgeneralize to make it appear bombastic and dramatic, although it's not warranted. Okay, here, a sample of data interpretation. I said there are four major revolutions in human history. The first one was agricultural revolution. Second one was with the machine. And the third one was information revolution. The fourth one is technology. So you write a story, you make a story, okay? And here, my recommendation for ceasefire, for ending the war, this was a journal article published in the US, I think a couple of years ago. I said, first ceasefire, and then you need a third party to make peace between the two parties, maybe Norway or whoever's acceptable to both Ukraine and to Russia. Third, conflict settlement, you stop the fighting. And then conflict transformation mean, okay, how do we move on from here? And then post-conflict, then what's the next step? So I wrote this. These are stages. This was my story, my interpretation of what should be done. And then another article I wrote. This is I wrote last year, published in December, at an international NGO whose offices are inside the United Nations headquarters in New York. I said there were breakthroughs in the UN, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but there were failings. It was not able to solve all of the world's problem. It's now like 75 years anniversary. So we should be happy that we have the Universal Declaration, but it did not answer everything, all of our worries. So we need to have next step. So this is a storyline in the form of figure. Okay, it summarized what I said. And this is another data interpretation. I said in human resource development, there are three models. You have performance, I call it conservative. Learning, I call it liberal. And then you have social justice, I call it critical, uh, progressive. So there are three types of human resources. And I said there are four types of theories in the world, from the global north, the global south, global east, and global west. The colonies, the colonial powers, the post-colonial powers, the rich power countries, and the poor countries. And there are four sets of theories in the world. This was published in Chicago. And then this one, I wrote a story, again in the form of a figure. Okay, there are four things that spiritual leaders do in the face of a problem. There are social problems, and these are four things they do: social action, and they transform society. And this was a book chapter published last year in the US. And this was post-COVID future. I said there are three possibilities. We will have new normal. Everyone will wear the mask as though it's just as normal as breathing, or we'll go back to our past, status quo ante, or we'll have a just, green, and peaceful future. But I ended up saying these are just analytic model, but in reality, the three of them are combined one way or the other. We're fighting for a just world. We're going to the old style, but then we're adapting to the COVID precautions. Okay, for lack of time, I'll just show you. And for validity, let me just say simply, due to lack of time, in qualitative vocabulary, it's called accuracy. So is your paper accurate? Okay. So these are the five things you can do to prove that what you wrote is correct. Did you have direct quotation, or you just make things up? The people you interviewed never said that, but you want to make it more dramatic. Reflexivity means recognize your biases. Maybe you are a man, but you support women's rights. Say it. Or you are a man, you have some questions about women saying things and you don't understand. Member check means go back to the people whom you interviewed or whom you observed and ask them, is this exactly what you did or said? Peer debriefing means you go back with your peers. If you are a student, with your classmates. If you're a faculty member, talk with other faculty members. If you're a researcher, talk with researchers. Show them your draft. And then they will give you constructive feedback. Triangulation means using all possible ways by which you can verify that what you wrote is accurate, from 1, 2, 3, 4, and other ways too. Reliability is what you said really consistent throughout the paper? Okay. In my paper, we did Cronbach's alpha of 0.85, which is not bad in the scale. So we'll not go there. And you have to have to show that your paper is consistent, you have to do triangulation, member check, peer debriefing, and also, let me see. Yeah, it's called item objectives congruence. Let's say if you have research question 1, what are your questions for your survey questionnaire? Put a table to show there's one-to-one correspondence. It's called IOC, Index of Item Objectives Congruence. This is to show your research is reliable. Okay, and ethics, I'll just jump. The key points are: don't do research without the people knowing you're doing it. Confidential, you have to keep the records so nobody would see your notes. Put them in lock and file. And the third one is anonymous, especially if they're protected people, like the refugees, they're domestic workers, they're battered wives, they're women whose faces have been thrown acid. You have to keep them anonymous. Okay, I have done this to show that we had gone through research ethics in my paper. So, in conclusion, so we've gone through 8 items. Comparing writing in humanities is different from the sciences, comparing methods and methodology, the different research designs, sampling techniques, data collection methods, validity and reliability, data analysis, interpretation, research ethics. So my recommendation to you, don't just attend all of the excellent Eudoxia seminars and Zoom meetings. Rather, write, publish now. Thank you.